All right. So you've sent over these Flint City Council meeting minutes,
Okay.
and both of them are dealing with the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Right.
So ARPA funds, as I'm sure you probably already know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're really digging into how these decisions are being made.
Yeah, very much so. And it's really interesting to see a city like Flint grappling with these decisions,
Yeah.
especially back in May of 2024,
Uh,
when everyone was still kind of wrapping their heads around how to use these funds.
yeah, totally. And the May 13th meeting kind of looks like your typical city council meeting,
Okay.
but then May 28th rolls around,
Uh-huh.
and oh boy,
Yeah.
things get a little
Yeah,
interesting.
let's get heated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those charts you included showing how the funds are being allocated are really key here.
Excellent.
I mean, blight elimination looks to be like a big focus for the city.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That big slice of green on the pie chart tells the story.
Right.
Blight elimination is priority number one for Flint, followed by public safety.
Yeah, makes sense.
Given the challenges the city's faced, yeah, it's not surprising.
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's kind of like break down these meetings a little bit.
Okay.
So May 13th is almost like the calm before the storm, right?
Yeah, a very apt description.
Okay.
We see the council receiving just this whole stack of proposals for these ARPA funds.
Fine.
Everything from rehabbing abandoned properties to boosting small businesses to, like you said, improving public safety.
So a lot of different options on the table.
Yeah.
Was there anything in this meeting that really jumped out at you?
There's one moment that kind of feels like foreshadowing where one council member, and we'll hear a lot more from this person later,
Yeah.
expresses concern about the process feeling rushed.
Okay.
They felt like the council needed more time to really vet these proposals and get the community involved.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So even in this relatively routine meeting, we start to see like a little bit of tension.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
A little bit of foreshadowing.
Now, before we jump into the thick of it on May 28th,
Okay.
let's take a closer look at those pie charts.
Yeah,
Because they give us a really good visual snapshot of how this ARPA spending is shaping up.
they do. As we said, blight elimination is taking the biggest chunk at around 40%.
Right.
And then public safety comes in second at about 25% of the funds.
So blight elimination and public safety, the big winners so far. But then this massive housing project kind of enters the scene.
Yeah.
And that's where that May 28th meeting really heats up.
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The meeting kicks off with a vote to allocate a whopping $15 million
Wow.
to a specific developer for this huge housing project.
Okay.
The goal, to create affordable housing and breathe new life into a struggling neighborhood.
Okay, $15 million. That's a serious chunk of change.
It is.
And the minutes mentioned that this ignited a huge debate.
Huge.
What were some of the main points of contention?
Well, several council members just came out swinging against this project,
Really?
and they had a laundry list of concerns.
Okay.
For starters, they questioned the chosen developer's experience, pointing out their lack of a track record with projects of this scale.
So right off the bat, there's skepticism about the developer's ability to handle a project of this magnitude.
Exactly.
What else?
Then there were doubts about whether this housing would actually be affordable.
Okay.
Some council members argued that the project wouldn't actually benefit the people of Flint who needed it most.
Right.
Pointing out how slippery that term affordable can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So doubts about the developer, doubts about the affordable label.
Right.
What else was kind of raising eyebrows here?
Well, concerns about the sheer scale of the project
Okay.
and its commensal impact on the surrounding neighborhoods.
Okay.
Some council members argued that this massive project was simply too large
Wow.
and would disrupt the fabric of the existing community.
Like trying to shove a square peg in a round hole.
Exactly.
This big, ambitious project might not be the right fit
Right.
for the community.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on top of all that,
Huh?
there were questions about transparency
Okay.
and whether the community had been sufficiently involved.
Yeah.
Some council members felt that the whole selection process had been rushed through without enough input from the people it would most affect.
Wow. So we've got concerns about the developer, affordability, the size of the project, lack of transparency. I'm honestly amazed that this project even made it to a vote,
Right.
let alone passed.
Well, it's important to remember that Flint desperately needs affordable housing.
Right.
And some council members passionately defended the project,
Yeah.
arguing that it would bring much-needed economic benefits and revitalize a neglected part of the city.
Right, and those are really strong arguments, too. So there are clearly valid points on both sides of this issue.
Absolutely.
But from your perspective, how do you see this kind of dilemma? I mean, cities are under all this pressure to use these ARPA funds effectively, but it's not easy to balance those urgent needs with long-term planning and community engagement, is it?
No, it's a classic example of the challenges inherent in urban revitalization.
Right.
You've got immediate needs, housing, jobs, public safety.
Right.
But you also have to think about the long-term consequences of every decision and bringing the community into the fold.
Yes.
Genuinely engaging them.
Yeah.
That is crucial.
Absolutely.
But that takes time
Yeah.
and resources, things that are often in short supply.
Right. And I'm starting to see why you find this also fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it goes way beyond just dollars and cents.
Right.
We're talking about people, communities, and how these decisions that are made today can really have like a ripple effect for years to come.
Exactly. And these minutes provide such a granular look at that very process.
Right.
How different values and priorities collide when you're dealing with a finite pot of money and complex problems.
So we've got this heated debate. We've got these impassioned arguments from all sides.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well,
Does this project actually get the green light?
it does.
Really?
Despite all the objections, the council votes to fund the project.
Wow.
But the margin is razor thin, 5-4.
Wow.
Just goes to show how deeply divided they were on this issue.
A real nail biter. So the project narrowly avoids being dead in the water,
Right.
but not without leaving some bruised egos and unanswered questions in its wake.
Exactly.
You mentioned earlier that ARPA funds were intended to help communities recover from the pandemic.
Yeah.
Could you unpack that a bit for me?
Sure.
I mean, housing is obviously important, but how does it directly connect to the pandemic's impact?
That's a great question, and it gets at the heart of why ARPA exists in the first place.
Okay.
The pandemic exposed and exacerbated existing inequalities.
Right.
And the housing crisis was hit particularly hard.
Yeah.
Think evictions, job losses, a surge in homelessness.
Right.
These issues disproportionately affected vulnerable communities.
So it wasn't just about keeping a roof over people's heads, but addressing the systemic issues that the pandemic brought into such sharp focus.
Exactly. It's about building back better, as the saying goes.
Wow.
Investing in solutions that create a more equitable and sustainable future for everyone.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if we zoom out for a second,
Okay.
what are your key takeaways from this particular deep dive?
Hi.
You've got these meeting minutes,
Right.
you've got the pie charts, and this broader context of ARPA and pandemic recovery.
Right.
What does it all mean for the listener?
Well, for me, it underscores the challenges of balancing competing interests when making big decisions about public funds.
Okay.
There's that pressure to act quickly, especially in a crisis,
Right.
but also the need for thorough planning and genuine community engagement.
Right.
It also shows how affordable housing can mean very different things to different people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And perhaps most importantly, it highlights the importance of looking beyond the immediate decision
Okay.
and asking ourselves, so what?
Right.
What are the potential long-term impacts?
Yeah.
Who benefits from these decisions and who might get left behind?
I think you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
There's so much more to uncover here than what's visible on just the surface of these meeting minutes.
Absolutely.
It's a real-world example of how policy decisions play out in the real world with all their complexities and often unintended consequences.
It is.
Speaking of trade-offs, this housing project feels like a little bit of a gamble, doesn't it?
It does.
Do you think it will ultimately be a success?
Well,
What factors would determine its success or failure in your eyes?
that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
Success in this context is a multifaceted thing. Yeah.
Will this project actually provide decent, genuinely affordable housing to the people who need it most?
Right.
Will it breathe new life into the surrounding area without pushing out the people who already live there?
Right.
And will it be sustainable in the long run,
Okay.
both financially and in terms of its impact on the community?
Right.
It's honestly too early to say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential here, but also a lot of risks.
Yeah. It feels very high risk, high reward at this point.
Absolutely.
Okay. So based on what we see in these minutes,
Yeah.
what would you say are the biggest red flags?
Well, the lack of detail about the developer's experience with affordable housing projects is definitely a concern.
Okay.
They might have a stellar track record with other types of development,
Yeah.
but affordable housing is a whole different ballgame.
There's a unique set of skills and knowledge needed to navigate the complexities of financing, construction, and management in this arena.
Right.
Without that expertise,
Yeah.
this project could easily veer off course.
So it's like hiring a world-class chef to build a house.
Right.
They might be great with their hands, but that doesn't mean they know the first thing about laying a foundation or installing plumbing.
Exactly.
Okay, so lack of specialized experience is one red flag.
Right.
What else is weaving in the wind?
Those concerns about affordability are definitely flapping in the breeze.
Okay.
The minutes are pretty vague on the actual rent levels
Okay.
and how they'd be determined.
Right.
Affordable is a relative term.
It is.
What's affordable for a young professional is likely out of reach for a single parent working a minimum wage job. Yeah, there needs to be a crystal clear plan to ensure that this project genuinely benefits low-income residents in Flint.
Yeah, it's like saying a car is fast, right?
Why? Yeah.
It's all relative.
Exactly.
For someone used to driving a beat-up old clunker, a Toyota Camry might feel like a rocket ship.
Right.
But for a race car driver, it would feel like a snail.
Exactly.
So we need more specifics.
We do, and that's why it's crucial to have clear definitions and criteria for affordability in these projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got two big red flags.
Okay.
Lack of specialized experience and serious concerns about affordability.
Right.
Anything else setting off alarm bells?
That limited community involvement in the selection process is a big one.
Okay.
The fact that some council members felt the process was rushed and lacked transparency, that is definitely worrisome.
Okay.
That can easily breed distrust and resentment within the community,
Yeah.
which could make it really difficult to get people on board with the project down the road.
It's like throwing a party and forgetting to invite your neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
They might not be too thrilled about it, even if the music is good.
Right.
So community involvement, or rather the lack of it, is another red flag
Big time.
to watch out for.
Yeah.
But let's flip the script for a second.
Okay.
If this project is handled correctly,
Yeah.
what are the potential upsides here?
Well, if it delivers on its promises, it has the potential to be transformative for this neighborhood.
Okay.
Think about it. New housing can attract new residents, new businesses.
Okay.
It can boost the local economy, improve property values, and even foster a sense of pride in the community.
So it's like planting a seed in a garden that's been neglected for far too long.
Yeah.
With the right care and attention, it could blossom into something truly beautiful.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
But just like with any garden,
Yeah.
it takes ongoing commitment
Right.
and a whole lot of collaboration to make sure that it thrives.
Okay, so let's say we're having coffee with our listener,
Okay.
and you're telling them about this deep dive. What are the key takeaways
Yeah.
you want them to walk away with?
Okay.
Why should they care about this whole saga unfolding in Flint, Michigan?
Because it's a story that's playing out in cities and towns all across the country right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a story about how we use public funds to address urgent social and economic needs, about the power dynamics between developers, local governments, and the communities they serve.
Wow.
It's a story about the different ways we define success when it comes to urban development.
I'll admit, you have a way of making even the most mundane topics sound captivating.
Well, thank you.
But you're absolutely right. This isn't just about one housing project in Flint.
Right.
This reflects these bigger questions that we're grappling with as a society.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it relevant to everyone,
Yeah.
regardless of where they live.
Okay.
It challenges us to think critically about these issues, to question our assumptions, and to consider different perspectives.
So let's say our listener is hooked.
Okay.
They're intrigued and they want to dig deeper.
Yes.
What would you advise?
Okay.
Where should they go next?
Well, remember, these minutes only offer a very limited view. They're
Okay.
just a record of what was said and voted on in those meetings,
Right.
not the full story.
Okay.
Some additional research could uncover a lot more about how this particular developer was chosen,
Okay.
what the community engagement process actually looked like,
Yeah.
and what the potential long-term impact of this project might be.
Okay.
Think news articles, reports from community groups, maybe even academic studies.
So it's like a real-life mystery.
It is.
We've got these initial clues,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to put in some serious detective work to uncover the whole story.
Exactly.
You're basically recommending some good old-fashioned investigative journalism here.
I am.
What specific questions would you suggest our listener explores?
Well, I'd want to know more about this developer's history with similar projects in other places. Have they actually delivered on their promises of affordable housing before?
Right.
What were the outcomes for the residents and the surrounding communities?
Okay.
I'd also want to dig into the criteria used to pick this developer in the first place.
Interesting. Okay.
Were there other proposals on the table?
Mm-hmm.
What were the strengths and weaknesses of each one?
Right.
How did they ultimately arrive at this decision?
You're like a dog with a bone.
Gotta get to the bottom of it.
You don't let go. I bet our listener is taking notes right now,
I hope so.
eager to launch their own investigation.
Yes.
But before we send them off on their detective work,
Okay.
let's leave them with one final thought-provoking question.
Okay, I like it.
Something to really mull over as they consider the long-term implications of this housing project.
I'm ready.
Here's one. What does revitalization really mean?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because it's often framed in purely economic terms.
Yeah.
Increased property values,
Mm-hmm.
new businesses popping up, job creation.
Right.
But what about the social and cultural impacts?
Exactly.
What happens to the soul of a place when revitalization comes knocking?
Right.
How?
Will this new development attract a different demographic?
Interesting.
Could it end up displacing longtime residents?
Right.
Will it fundamentally change the character of this neighborhood?
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of new development,
It is.
the promise of progress,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to remember that change is rarely neutral.
So
It can bring about some really positive outcomes,
It can.
but they can also have unintended consequences, especially for the people who are already struggling.
The people who are most vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a crucial reminder that development isn't just about bricks and mortar.
Right.
It's about people.
It is.
The most successful projects are the ones that put the needs and well-being of the community front and center.
Beautifully said. I love that.
Okay, I think we've given our listener a lot to chew on today.
I think so.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind tour of urban development,
It has.
with all its complexities, challenges, and possibilities.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to unpack these important issues with you.
Right, and for you listening out there,
Yes.
I encourage you to keep asking those tough questions,
Please do.
to keep digging deeper,
Yes.
and to stay engaged in the process.
Because the future of our cities and towns depends on it.
That's a wrap on another deep dive, folks.
Until next time.
Until next time, stay curious.
Those are the questions, aren't they?
Right.
What does success look like for this project for you?
Yeah.
Is it just about like adding new housing units to the map?
Right.
Or are we talking about something deeper?
Mm-hmm.
You know, building a community that thrives,
Right.
improving the quality of life for the people who already live there,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that it's all sustainable for the long haul.
It's not just about putting up buildings. It's about building something that lasts.
Exactly. And, you know, maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
smaller scale, community-driven projects would be a better fit for Flint's needs.
Okay.
You know, we've seen this work in other cities that are struggling with these same issues.
Right.
Take Pittsburgh, for example. They've had great success with community land trusts,
Okay.
which help keep housing affordable and give residents a voice in development decisions.
It's about empowering the community from the ground up,
Yes.
not imposing a one-size-fits-all solution from above.
Exactly.
What would that even look like in Flint?
Well, instead of pouring all the resources into one massive project,
Yeah.
maybe they spread the love a bit.
Okay.
Imagine a program that helps existing residents fix up their homes,
Okay.
make them safer, more energy efficient,
Mm.
or one that gives grants and microloans to local businesses
Right.
to revitalize those struggling commercial corridors
Right.
that we see in so many neighborhoods.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's about giving the community the tools and resources to shape their own destiny.
Exactly.
Okay. So if we had to boil this whole deep dive down into a few essential points,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say are the most important takeaways?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, just
Yeah.
remember that every decision has a ripple effect.
Yes.
You know, when it comes to urban development, what seems like a simple housing project
Right.
can have far-reaching consequences, both
Mhm.
positive and negative.
And quick.
So it's vital to look beyond the immediate
R-
and ask those "so what" questions.
Right. Think big picture.
Exactly. Second, affordability is not a one-size-fits-all concept.
Right.
What's affordable for one household might be out of reach for another.
Totally.
So it's about understanding the nuances of the local context.
Absolutely. And finally.
Finally, and this might be the most crucial takeaway of all,
Okay.
community engagement is not optional.
Okay.
It's not just a box to be ticked. It has to be at the heart of
Yeah.
any revitalization effort.
Okay.
When you bring people together,
Yeah.
give them a seat at the table,
Mm-hmm.
amazing things can happen.
That's a great point to end on.
Yeah.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
And I know our listeners out there right now probably taking notes,
I hope so.
formulating their own brilliant ideas.
Yes.
So as we sign off,
Yes.
here's something to ponder
Okay.
as you delve deeper into the challenges facing your own community.
Yes.
Think about this.
Okay.
How can you be a force for positive change?
How can you amplify the voices that are often overlooked
Right.
and champion solutions that benefit everyone?
It's about asking those tough questions,
Yes.
staying engaged, and never, ever underestimating your own power to make a difference.
Because the future of our cities and towns depends on it.
That's a wrap on another deep dive, folks. Until next time, stay curious.